I yeah,
which is
it's
huge.
crazy. I'm super fortunate,
Yeah.
super lucky to be with such a cool company. But yeah,
Yeah.
like in like the market of where a lot of companies are right now, like most of them aren't really signing people. So
Sure.
it's just interesting. So I've just kind of been like, well, like I don't mind buying the stuff, so I'll just go buy it and support the companies until they feel like
Yeah.
they want to support me too. But
Sure. Well, let's dive
yeah,
into that a little bit. Because Garrett and I talked. You know
yeah,
Garrett Goodwin, and he and I've talked about that a little bit. And I was listening to a podcast of drummer Steve Carey from Census Fail. We're actually going to have him on the show hopefully in a
cool.
couple weeks. But I heard his story because he endorses DW now, and what was that process like for you? And the reason I ask is because I feel like I hear a lot of drummers talking about like, oh, I want to endorse Zildjian or
Yeah.
endorse DW, and it seems like that becomes their end goal. Where I've talked to a lot of guys who do endorse these companies, and they're like, don't make
No, it
that your
shouldn't be.
goal. What's your take on that? Or either what's your take on that, or and what was that process like for you joining a company as big as DW?
Yeah, well, I mean, let's start with like the process of it. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I'll say this, it's going to happen differently for everyone. It's never going to be the same
Yeah.
story. It's never going to be the it's you're probably not going to hear this story. I sent an application in online and they accepted me. It's probably not going to
Right.
happen that way. I mean, it can. I never hear of that happening. Um,
Yeah.
honestly, I a friend of a friend of a friend knew that knew people at DW, and he manages someone bigger with DW, and he
Sure.
knew that I liked DW drums, and he messaged me one day and he was like, "Hey, like, are you interested in DW?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, like absolutely. Like I love that company. I bought a kit like just outright from them. Like, yeah, I want one that bad." And he was like,
Yeah.
"All right, cool." He's like, "Would you ever like endorse them?" I was like, "Absolutely." He was like, "All right, cool." About a week later, I got an email from them basically with an application attached. I was like,
Yeah.
"What? Like, are you kidding me?" And that
Yeah.
it's literally how it happened. I wasn't really doing much when they actually approached me, but they saw what I was doing with Devin. They saw what I was doing on my social media, and they were like, "Okay, like we want to grow. We want to help you grow as a drummer and as an artist." So I was like, "Well, that's exactly what I want out of a company is someone that'll
Yeah.
work with me where I'm at." So
Right.
yeah, they took a chance on me, and I mean, I I hope it's paying off for them, but yeah, that's kind of how it like started with me and DW. But it's been a great, super mutually beneficial relationship with us two. But yeah, that's kind of how it started. And it was nothing crazy. No, like I don't know. I didn't like send an application in. They were just kind of
Sure.
like, yeah, like here's a contract. I was like, geez. But super
Yeah.
lucky. I mean, I just happened to know someone that kind of got
Right.
me in the door. But a lot of my
Mm-hmm.
teachers, because I was still in school when they signed me, a lot of my teachers were
Oh,
telling me
okay.
like, that's how it happens. Like they were like, that's
Yeah.
what you should expect for endorsements. They were like,
Mm-hmm.
you're not really going to send an application in and get a response. And they're like, if you do, you'll probably just get a
Right.
deny response because
Yeah.
they mostly, I mean, they look at them, yeah, but they've got so much stuff on their plate as a company. Like from what I've understood, they don't have time to waste on that kind of.
Yeah.
But when it comes to like the end goal, it definitely shouldn't be your end goal. At all.
Okay.
I don't think.
Yeah.
It's great to be endorsed by a company. It's awesome, but at the same time, like I tell people this, like, yeah, would it be nice to get all this stuff for free? Absolutely, but a lot of people that don't have an endorsement think that all of us that have endorsements are getting everything for free, and that is not the case. That is not the
Right.
case at all. I mean, we still have to pay these companies for their time, and yeah,
Sure.
they give us great deals, which is
Yeah.
huge in its own. But everyone's like, oh man, like they think that the kit that I have out right now, they think that I didn't pay for it. It's like, no, no, no. I paid 4 grand for that just like everyone else did. Like
Right.
I paid full price for that kit, but it was
Yeah.
before I was signed with them. I still play the same kit,
Sure.
which should be a testament. Like
Yeah.
they asked me, they're like, "Do you need anything?" And I was like, nope. I was like, I'm already
Yeah,
pretty much set with what I need from y'all. So that
for
was a cool
sure.
thing for when I signed with them. They were pretty impressed. They were like, oh, like that's another thing if for people trying to get signed. It's like you got to believe in the product for them to really want to
Hmm.
work with you, because if you don't believe in the product and you're just chasing an endorsement to just get free or cheap stuff, it's like they don't want to work with you. Why
Yeah,
would they want to work with you? But
yeah. I've I've heard that the whole loyalty
yeah,
thing from some guys, and I'm not gonna put words in her mouth, but I feel like I heard that from Sarah Hagen from
yeah, I
Zildjian.
love Sarah.
I
She's
was
great.
I was I was listening to her on I think it was the 180
Yeah,
podcast, 180 Drums podcast. They
yeah,
interviewed her, and I've just heard in general that a lot of those companies, like, people think that they need to put in applications to get their name out there, but you think about, like, at least in my brain, I could be wrong, but I think like the A&R reps are looking like they're watching,
they are watching.
um and some of the guys I've heard, they're like they can tell who's been playing Zildjian for a long time because they love Zildjian regardless if
Right.
they're getting a deal or not. And um that's cool, man. That's I think that that's something that a lot of guys don't really get an inside access to, and how that whole world
Right.
works, as far as like deals and stuff. And
Yeah, it's
um
a yeah, I'd never want to tell people like that should be your goal, because it shouldn't be.
yeah,
The goal is to
right,
play music and play what you love. So
definitely.
I'm like, whatever it takes, play what you love, and the deals will come, or they
Yeah,
won't. Not everyone's meant to
yeah,
have deals. I mean, I only have DW, but people ask me all the time. They're
sure,
like, "You got to be endorsed by like everyone." I'm like, "Nope, still buying sticks, heads, and all that, just like you. Like
yeah,
whether like I have a gig or a big gig or whatever, I'm still buying the same." And take Aaron Sterling for example. I was just at his master
hmm,
class last week, and he buys sticks and drums and cymbals just like everyone else. And now Istanbul and Sugar have kind of been like teaming up with Aaron, but like they don't really endorse. I don't think they endorse him. I don't think he's like officially with them. But I mean,
okay,
he goes to Pro Drum Hollywood and buys sticks just like the 15-year-old who's playing in his basement, like just
yeah,
like everyone else. So it's a good example to just tell people like, hey man, you can be successful without having deals. Like you don't have to have a
sure,
deal. You don't. It's at the end of the day, a lot of all it's really going to get you is cheaper gear and the ability to tell someone I have a deal,
sure,
which it's not really it doesn't mean you're a better player. Doesn't mean
yeah,
you're have more followers on Instagram. But
no, no.
yeah, it's yeah, it shouldn't be your end goal. Is the point there?
What let's go into touring. For example, I think hearing everybody's stories on touring and what their day to day is like is different. How do you keep like, what's your daily regimen whenever you're on tour?
Mm.
If you're living out of a bus, like, are you practicing a lot, or are you just, what's that like for you, like on a day to day basis
So
on the
on a
road?
day to day, when I'm let's put it this way, when I'm not managing merch for Devin, because I mentioned earlier I did that. So
Yeah.
that's kind of like a help out thing right now. Like, but when I'm not doing that, a day to day is I'll
Right.
wake up, usually just like just like the day to day crap, eat cereal, drink coffee. But
Yeah.
I'll usually go in the venue, like walk around, make sure like everything's there. But usually our load in, even when we're headlining, we don't load in until 1 or 2. So I kind of have the whole morning to do what I want to do. A lot of times we'll write in the morning because all 5 of the band members are all writers. So we
Okay.
all try to write as much as we can. Sometimes it's hard on the road. Road is
Sure.
not always the easiest to write songs on, but it happens sometimes. But sometimes I'll get up and I'll usually work through like emails and just crap. I'll honestly just try to fill my time until we load in, and then I'll go work on my drums, set them up. I don't have a tech, so I do it all myself.
Yeah.
Um, tune. I always tune to the rooms. I always like try to take as much time as I can to like really dial each room, and we sound check and play the show. I mean, it's not like a crazy day to day, but we usually explore the town that we're in. in the mornings.
Okay.
Sometimes we do that, depending on the town. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's not really like a crazy day to day. I don't get to practice as much as I would like to on the road. I mean, obviously like I
Sure.
use a practice pad and do that, work on rudiments and stuff, but I don't really get to like
Mm.
fully practice. But I on this tour,
Yeah.
I'm actually going to take out like a little DW practice pad kit, the little
Right.
like it's got like 4 pads or something.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm going to take that out and set it up like in the green room or something.
Sure.
But yeah, just to work on stuff as we're going. But it's it's weird. As much time as you think you have, you don't. Like it seems like you have a lot of time, but you don't, because
Yeah.
there's so many moving parts. Like you need to make sure you're eating at certain like the right times, because sometimes like catering's only up from like 12 to 1 or 12 to 2, and it's like you have to eat in that hour or an hour and a half period, or you're not going to eat.
Yeah.
But you have to make sure you're showered, and like when we're on like like an opening tour, that's when it gets really hairy, because you don't load in until later in the day. But once you're like loading in, it's like go time until the show's over, because
Okay.
there's no really like break, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never really like, thought of like our day-to-day touring. I just don't even.
You just get used to
Yeah,
it,
you just
right?
kind of get in a groove and do your thing. I mean, some days I'll sleep till 11.
Yeah.
And because it's in those bus bunks, it's pitch black at all times, so
Right.
you just don't know what time it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, but so kind of like a bit of advice for younger drummers. um so I mentioned running merch for Devin. They approached me about helping out and just filling in for merch management. I'm not saying that young drummers should go try to be the merch guy, but being indispensable to an artist is super important, for staying around, for
Yeah.
not getting let go, or when they want to whatever give pay raises, like you'll be the first in mind, if that makes sense.
Right.
That's kind of something that's kind of important in my brain, is like doing like helping out as much as you can and being indispensable to the team and the artist.
Sure.
And so something, if they approach you with that, or when it comes to like, I don't know, breaking the stage down, like don't just take off. Like get your drums loaded, get all that done, but then like offer help to other guys if they're still working,
Yeah.
because like we don't have much crew out, so they're swamped. So once I'm done with drums, I go straight to start breaking down stands and wrapping cables and making sure mics are in the right place, and I just help. So
Yeah.
it's really big, in my opinion, for younger guys to realize coming up, is like just be helpful and be a part of the team, because we all have an end goal, and the end goal is to basically get back in bed.
Right.
And to make the show go as smoothly as possible. And if everyone's helping, it goes really quick. But if everyone leaves and packs their stuff up and just bails, it's like, well, you left all this work for the other guy. And yeah. So you want to be
Yeah.
a team. And like, that's what I think we have on the road a lot, is we all help. We all are really, we're a family, if that makes sense. We all try to help out where we can.
Yeah.
But
Well, speaking of the teamwork mindset, how does that play into you guys as a band? Even though,
yeah,
like, I feel like a lot of drummers, and I could be wrong, but I feel like a lot of, like, when it comes to an artist thing, like, it's like y'all are under Devin Dawson,
right.
as far as the title goes.
Yeah.
But it still seems like y'all have like a band mindset, which I think is kind of cool.
Yeah.
What's that like for you whenever it comes to song creation or even recording, playing live? Like,
Yeah.
what advice would you say as far as like your role in the mix of everybody else?
Right.
How you go, like song creation, for example. What does that look like for you
So
working with Devin?
Devin writes all the songs. I mean,
Okay.
he is Devin Dawson. He is the artist. He is the songwriter. He writes with a lot of other people. But yeah, so he's writing the songs. He's doing demos with other people, and he's doing all that. I'll give an example. For the first record, he brought us all the songs, and we worked them up over a few months, and just in rehearsals and just jamming and playing out shows. Like we played almost the whole album at a show before we did the record.
Wow.
And then we went into the studio, and we were fortunate enough to be able to play on the record. We
Yeah.
worked with a producer that was gracious enough to have the younger guys come in and play on the record. And Devin was a huge part of that. He was a huge advocate of using us and keeping us in the creative world of the record. But yeah, I mean, I guess so we got to do the record, but so he writes, it's basically, he writes the songs and he brings them to us, and we usually help bring the productions to life. But that's kind of how the first record worked. I mean, for the second record, we're not really sure what's going to happen.
Sure.
We're just not assuming. Of course, I mean, obviously, I want to be a part of it. I want to be in the studio, but it's not always the case. A lot of times they'll bring in big session guys, and that's okay because they're incredible at what they do. Yeah. And it depends on the producer. It depends on the production. Maybe the song doesn't have drums. Maybe it's all electronic. Maybe it's samples.
Yeah.
It could be, and that's okay. So it's a case by case, but with Devin, like that's kind of where we are with the creation of the songs. Like we definitely help with our own personal instruments, but he writes them all.
Okay. What was that like for you? Like the real world realization of how the studio and session industry goes. Like I didn't realize, it never occurred to me whenever, like Garrett and I talked a while back, and he had told me that most of like Carrie's stuff he's not on.
Yeah, it's not him.
Most of it's like Chris McHugh or Nersey or whoever. What was that like for you? Well, first question. Are you on Devin's records, or is it somebody else recording them?
Yeah,
it's you. Okay. Yeah. So what was that like for you? The realization that one day the producer could be like, "Hey, we're gonna get somebody else to do this record." I guess what was that process like for you? Even though you haven't been there yet with Devin, I guess. How would you explain that to somebody? If somebody were like, how much sense does that make for you not to be on a record that you're touring with that person? How would you explain that whole side of things to someone?
Well, I guess I would just say that is tough.
It's a tough one.
It's definitely tough mentally for, I would say, me, because obviously I want to be a part of the record. I want to be on it. But at the same time, it's like, if I were explaining to someone, I'd be like, you have to understand, I'm still the live drummer, and I am the studio drummer for him at the same time. But let's say the second record, he uses someone else, and people are like, why aren't you on the second record? I'll just be like, well, because that's kind of the norm, first of all, for the sessions and like the studio versions, for them to hire guys that have 30 plus years of experience on me, or whatever, how many years, doesn't matter. But a lot of these guys have been doing this for years, and I've only just scratched the surface compared to what they've done. So for them to come in, I mean, they have a better head on their shoulders. They're more mature with their playing and their sounds. And that's completely fair, because at the end of the day, they're probably going to get paid about the same because it's all union. So to them, they're like, well, we're paying the same thing. Why not use someone that's got 20 plus experience on this guy? That's what I would tell people. It's not personal.
Sure.
It's never personal. Right. It can be personal, but it wouldn't be personal with Devin. Yeah. And I think he would love to use this on the records, but at the same time, like, there may be a song where he's like, you know what? I really think this guy would sound way better on this song. And they call him in and they do it, and it sounds better. And it's like, well, if it serves the song at the end of the day better to have that other player, that's what it needs to happen.
Yeah.
So like I said, it's not personal. It's just a matter of, we all have our own playing styles.
Right.
And some things work for some and some things work for others, and it's okay. So like, there's sessions that I've turned down.
Sure.
I've been like, hey, like, that ain't me. Here's 6 guys that are. Here's 6 guys that'll kill it.
Yeah.
That'll do way better than me, and not to say that I would waste their time. Like, I could get there eventually, but to me, I'm like, I'm trying to think of the bigger picture and think of the song.
Yeah.
But that's another thing. I would tell people, think of the bigger picture.
Okay.
Especially like young drummers that are like, well, I don't get it. Like, why am I not on the record? It's like, well, if you think of the bigger picture in mind, there's a reason you're not on the record, and that's okay. It's just this guy has 20 years of experience on you, and he's played with these 10 huge artists, and he's played on all these number ones. It's like he knows what he's doing for the studio, and he knows how to get the right sounds and everything like really quick.
Yeah.
And he can come in and do it in 2 takes, whereas it would take you 5 hours.
Right.
So it's like, it's not personal, and it's never personal, but yeah.
Well, I like your story in general, like you said, and I completely agree that everybody's story is going to be different.
Yeah. Always.
As far as like where they start and where they get to, but having been in Nashville for as long as you have, and in the industry for as long as you have, what advice would you have to, if a drummer came to you and said, I want to tour and do exactly what you're doing, and I'm not anywhere close to that, what advice would you give to them, even though your story is different, knowing what you know? What advice would you give to somebody in general?
Make friends. I mean, that's the number one thing. Like, you gotta make friends. You gotta be cool to people, and have like you have to make people want to call you.
Yeah.
But it's not always a playing thing.
Sure.
I mean, everyone's probably in this town. I mean, we're all probably good enough to do most things.
Yeah.
But it's a matter of who's going to be the best hang, who's going to fit in with us the best. And it's not always right. There's been plenty of bands where I've been in where I'm like, this isn't right. Like, I'm out.
Right.
Or they've let me go because they're like, it's just not working out, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's make friends. Like, people ask me all the time, like, how do you get sessions? And I'm like, well, I make friends with people that have sessions.
Yeah.
I'm not like, I don't get like a random call from like an ad where they're like, dude, I saw you drumming. I don't even know. It's hard to explain, but I don't get like random calls like that. Like, it's usually like someone that I know calls me and they're like, hey, I've got a session. I want you on it, or you would work really well. Or it'll be a friend of a friend that's like, hey, I called my buddy and asked who a good drummer was, and he gave me your name.
Yeah.
So it all comes back to just like making friends, and just, I don't want to say networking. I hate that word.
Yeah.
But let's go network. Because it just sounds so germy. It just sounds so just like,
corporate.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, don't network. Like,
yeah.
Hey, I'm Kip. Finance is the game. Like, it's like, what? Like, no, just, but that's another point. Like, don't be weird with it. Don't be like, hey man, like, I play drums. Like, I really want to play on sessions. It's like, no, just go make friends. Don't even talk about music.
Dude, yeah.
Who cares? That's so important to me. Like, especially when I get coffee with other drummers and producers, and I don't even really talk music.
Yeah.
I'm just like, if they want to talk music, I'm like, yeah, cool, let's talk some music.
Sure.
But a lot of times we'll end up talking about a car, or who cares, or how good the coffee is we're drinking, and then we'll go in like that for an hour. And it's like, that's the kind of conversations I want with people. Like, I'm not always worried about the music conversations, and it's fun to have them.
Yeah.
But when I'm like really trying to get to know someone, that's not always the top of the agenda.
Sure. Well, that seems to be the reoccurring theme to me, like with guys that I ask that same question to, is it doesn't, most of the time, I'd say 95% of the time, it's not, well, your social media needs to have this, or your resume need to say this. Most guys are just like, just make friends with people and watch the snowball get bigger, you know?
Exactly. Yeah. Just hang and be a cool guy or girl, whatever.
Yeah. Well, and two, you think if you're on the road, for instance, if you're living with people for months at a time, you want to make sure that not only like, are you a good hang for them, but are they a good hang for you?
Exactly.
And I think it all really boils down to just relationship. And it makes sense too to me that somebody's going to refer you to somebody else because they know you and not just know who you are, you know?
Right.
That's cool, man. That's confirming to hear too, especially in Nashville. Like, before I moved here, you and I had coffee not long after I moved here, but
yeah, I remember that.
Shortly,
that was fun.
Yeah, that was good. Shortly after that, I realized how like before I moved, I felt like Nashville was like this really big, like Nashville specifically, was like a really big town with thousands of players doing the same thing that I wanted to do, and it was really competitive and blah 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 blah. But then you get
Right.
here and you realize that once you get inside this little circle, most people know everybody, and
Yeah.
like it's not as like facing the crowd as it seems, and
Right.
it really does kind of boil down to just hanging out with people. And two, I think I heard it. I had coffee with Josh Sales not too long ago, and he was
Oh,
telling,
cool.
yeah, he's a cool guy.
Yeah.
He and I were talking. He said he saw like Seth Rogen in LAX or something, and Seth had like people pawing after him for something, and he's like, please just let me get to my car. But then while he's standing in line for coffee, somebody just like talks about coffee with him or something, and he was way more
Yeah.
susceptible to talk to them about something that wasn't about who he was. And like you said, I think at the end of the day, like your first go-to topic isn't music, it's what TV show did I watch yesterday or whatever, and that's how you
Yeah.
build that relationship and stuff.
Right. It's like I want to be more than just like a musical friend. I want to be a friend.
Right.
Like I want to make relationships with people and grow the circle of friends, and it's always fun to like have a lot of friends and know a lot of people. But when you it's hard to explain when you just talk like business. It doesn't even have to be music. When you just talk business, that doesn't really feel like a friendship. It always just feels like a I don't know, like you guys are like benefiting each other. It's just like
Yeah.
it can feel one-sided too. Like someone could come to you for only advice,
Yeah.
and it's like that's all you come to me for. Like you don't want to know how my day was. You don't want to know
Right.
what show I'm watching or what coffee we had. It doesn't matter. Like that's always like it tells me a lot about someone.
Yeah.
It's just like all you really want from me is that you just want something
Mhm.
from me, and then you're done. So it's like I'm less likely to call that person for something
Yep.
because I'm like, well, you don't really feel like my friend.
Yeah. I don't really
But
know
that's
you.
that's yeah, I don't know you.
Yeah.
So Nashville is so based around that.
Mm.
So around friendship, around people being cool and close and
Yeah.
not just all about business.
Yeah.
So that's huge.
Yeah, I was about to say it doesn't it once you get here you realize, or anywhere, it doesn't always have to be a business transaction.
Right.
And I was actually Garrett and I were hanging out a couple months ago, and he said the same thing. I asked him, I was like, if somebody asked you about Nashville, what would you say? And he was like, when you meet somebody, don't always go into it with what they can do for you. He's like just go talk to them about whatever. And
Yeah.
which
Doesn't matter.
Which unfortunately I think is like I don't know. I feel like with a lot of people with the whole like looking at fanboy crazing, for instance,
Yeah.
I feel like it's hard for people to not do that. And I'm like,
Yeah.
why is it hard? You know, like I don't know. We're chasing a rabbit trail on that. But
No, I love it. Yeah, it's great.
but yeah, man, so to kind of wrap things up, I know you said you're going back on the road on the 30th.
Yeah.
As much as you can say, what's the future look for you guys this year? Any future plans, or
mean-
just like this tour is next and then we'll see what happens kind of thing?
That's kind of where we're at. Tour for now, and then I know that this year is. I'm assuming they've kind of talked about like new record, so hopefully we're a part of it. Hopefully we're part of some of it. I don't know.
Cool.
We don't really know. We don't really have any information yet, but we're all kind of like fingers crossed. Like I hope we get a call to do the next record. But I mean, at the end of the day, like it's whatever's going to serve the songs best, and you have to be okay with that.
Yeah.
But I'm excited to see what happens either way. I'm excited if they call someone huge in or if they call me in. Like I'll be pumped either way.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's kind of what they're talking about right now, but also nothing is confirmed.
For sure.
So, and we've got like festivals all summer and
Cool.
festival season, the usual.
Yeah.
But we'll be at a lot of the bigger festivals this year, which would be really cool.
Awesome.
Yeah. But other than that, yeah, nothing at the moment.
Cool.
So we'll find out.
Well, Kip, thanks for taking time out of your day to chat and kind of share your story a little bit. And everybody, just keep a lookout for Kip. You can find him on social media, and if Devin's coming your way, make sure you go check him out. But Kip, thanks again, man. Good talking to you.
Hey, thank you for having me. Yeah, you too.
If you in trouble, put the fall on me.